This is the weekend of the third round of the Senior and Intermediate Football Championships, and in many ways the third round is very often the defining round as to how clubs will eventually fare in the competition, plus the fact that it's the first round back after a 3-month break, and very often clubs that have been doing very well after 2 rounds find it difficult to pick up the good form when the third round comes around. And likewise the converse can be said that clubs that are not doing so well in the first two rounds, they regroup over the long break and suddenly get their act together and make a late bid to get into those coveted knockout places. Now, the action is spread out over 5 days. It's starting on Thursday. There's action on Friday. There's none on Saturday. There's some action on Sunday, and there's further action on Tuesday. That's to accommodate the players that are involved with the Limerick Senior hurling team in the All-Ireland semi-final at Croke Park on Saturday. But to take a closer look at the different groups and to sort of crystal ball to some degree as to what might transpire over the coming days. Kick off Group 1 in Carina on Friday evening at 7:15 when St. Senan's and Monaleen lock horns. It's a huge game for both because Senan's just missed out on scoring difference last year from making the knockout stages, and they have been on the receiving end of 2 heavy defeats in the opening rounds to Father Casey's and more recently to Ballylanders. Now Monaleen, for their part, find themselves in a position that is not entirely unusual for them. They have tended to be slow starters in past and then picked it up on the run-in. To date, they have 2 defeats. They lost in the opening round to champions Adair, and then lost in round 2 to Ballysteen. So both clubs are in desperate need of points. St. Senan's, to a degree, may be suffering from a second-year syndrome. Looking at who might win it, I suppose Forum would suggest that it will go to Monaleen. St. Senan's have a big turnover of players from last year, and that there are a number of players that were available last year are not available this year, and for various reasons. But I honestly believe that I think Monaleen will probably relaunch a bid to get back into the hunt for the knockout places on Friday evening. Also on Friday evening, the Bog Garden in Rathkeil, it'll be hosting probably the big game of the weekend. 2 unbeaten sides. Adair, the champions, going for 3 in a row. Unbeaten in the current campaign. Good wins over Monaleen and Father Casey's under their belt, against a Ballysteen side that have really hit the ground running in this campaign. Ballysteen, you will recall, were defeated dramatically in the quarter-final by Ballylanders last year with a last-minute goal, and the sides were ordained to meet in the first round this year, and boy did Ballysteen avenge that defeat. They built on that victory over Ballylanders with a hard-fought victory over Monaleen. So there is little doubting of Ballysteen's credentials. They have taken the scalps of 2 sides who have been on the winners' podium in the last number of years. Now, of course, the champions Adair are going to be a huge test. There has been an expectation, I suppose, with nearly 2.5 campaigns now, that Adair are going to slip up, but it hasn't happened. It will be the real test of where Ballysteen are at. I think that this is the first year, maybe in 3 or 4 years, that Ballysteen have got the reward that their football has deserved. It's a huge game for both sides, in that the winner will probably be safely through to the knockout stages. I'm going for the experience of a dare and the consistency of a dare to just shade this one. The group will conclude next Wednesday night when Kevin Long Park in Fina will host a meeting of Ballylanders and Father Casey's. These are sides that have similar records to date. They're both on 2 points after 2 games. Father Casey's had a blistering start to the campaign with a huge win over St. Senans, but didn't back it up and faltered to a dare in the second round. Ballylanders, meanwhile, as I mentioned earlier on, lost to Ballysteen rather decisively in the first round. And of course, Ballylanders were last year's runners-up. They were forced with a situation of just having to pick it up in the second round, and they did just that against St. Senans, with a big win over St. Senans to put themselves back in the hunt. Now, Father Casey's they have a record, an unenviable record over the last number of years when it comes to underage football, but they have failed to translate it into success at senior level. And we've been saying year on year, is this going to be Father Casey's year? And I'm slow to say it this time because I've been wrong so often in the past. But I think this is going to be a very, very close game. But I somehow fancy that Ballysteen may win. Father Casey's may win this one. The action in Group 2 gets underway on this Thursday evening when Park Sean McGarrett in Kilmallock will host a meeting of the top side Newcastle West and the bottom side Galbally. Now, the table doesn't lie. These clubs find themselves in the position that they're in because certainly Newcastle West hit the ground running, whilst Galbally have been slow in making the transition from intermediate to senior this year. Newcastle West, with Mike Quilligan back on board in the hot seat, have won their first 2 games, both against Western rivals, against Drumculloher Broadford and against St. Kieran's. And of course, they had a good win over St. Kieran's. Traditionally, there has been close contests between them, none more so than the recent Division 1 league final when extra time failed to divide them. But certainly, I think in the manner in which they defeated St. Kieran's in the championship, I think Newcastle West made a statement. Now, Galbally had been knocking at the door of promotion to senior ranks for a couple of years. They were narrowly beaten in the 2016 intermediate final by St. Senans. They made up for it, in 2017 final by St. Senans, and they made up for it last year when they dug out a great win in the Gaelic grounds in the intermediate final over Rathkeil. The expectation was that they would find the transition to senior easier than they have found it, but the main issue with Galbally has been the loss of some key players to injury. Now, the expectation is that many of those players, or the most of them, will be back in harness for the game against Newcastle West this week. Galbally certainly have been working hard over the summer. They got through to the Division 2 league final, which they are due to play against Callaghan. Now, of course, Galbally are trying to marry being a dual club with Garryspillane, and like the double success of last year with Garryspillane at intermediate level brings its own problems in that you have hurlers and footballers trying to make the transition from intermediate to senior. Who do I think will win it? All 4 points to Newcastle West in this one. I think Newcastle West have what it takes to make it 3 wins from 3, and it will put Galway in a very difficult situation going into the final 2 rounds. A 3rd defeat really for any club signals trouble, but I think it's Newcastle West for me on this one. On Thursday evening also, Newcastle West will be hosting a very big West Limerick derby between St. Kieran's and Drumbradford. Now St. Kieran's have already won 1 game and lost 1 game. St. Kieran's in 2018 had a fantastic group stages, reeled off 4 wins, the first 4, lost to Newcastle West in the group stages, and surprisingly lost the form that they showed in the group stages. They failed to bring it into the quarterfinals and surprisingly lost to Monaleen. Now Drumbradford, of course, I suppose it's fair to allude to them as the fallen giants of Limerick football at the moment. They only picked up 1 win last year. They barely avoided being embroiled in the relegation playoff. It was the first time since they were promoted to senior that they didn't make the knockout stages. The year so far, this year so far has brought little solace. They were beaten in the first round by Newcastle West and were comprehensively beaten by Ula in the second round. And I suppose it's fair to say that that was a bit of a surprise. Not so much that they were beaten, but the manner and the extent to which they were beaten. In this particular one, I'm going for St. Kieran's to get back to winning ways. The final game in the group is on Tuesday evening, when Carrick-on-Laois is the venue for the meeting of Na Piarsaigh and Ula. Having seen both of these sides this year, they are 2 certainly exciting teams to watch. Now, Ula will come into the game on the back of 2 wins, full points. This after they had struggled in the competition last year. Their wins were over Galway, newly promoted Galway in the first round, and over Drumbradford in the second round. And certainly with the hurlers on board, they are a very formidable outfit. Now they face a Piarsaigh side who on their day can play some excellent football. The Piarsaigh's first game was on a very wet evening in McNeville Park when they played St. Kieran's. Very difficult conditions for football. They came up second best that evening, but they in the second round they had top of the ground conditions in Bruff when they met Galway, and they put on a barnstorming performance of football, of some excellent football. One thing that's assured in this game is that if these 2 teams play to their potential, there will be plenty of good football. It will be a tight game. I think Ula, they have a bit of momentum with them. I suppose in the circumstances for Ula, having not made the cut last year and having gone off to a great start, the last thing they wanted after round 2 was to have a break. If they can pick it up after the break, I'm going for Ula to win this one.